Greetings, my friends. Welcome to the next episode of the Mint Mob podcast. Jason here, joined by my buddy Alex across the pond in Germany. We're going to jump into the markets, the project, and all things crypto, of course. Maybe dive into some news. But first, let's check in. What's going on, Alex? How you doing, buddy?
Hey man, I'm doing great. I told you privately, like a couple minutes ago, that I received my canvases with my little Goodfellas NFTs, and they look awesome. I think it's like still a difference if you see it in real life compared to just seeing it on a screen. And more people should do that. I actually knew that you have like your own NFT on a canvas. I know that our holder Mark has a lot of NFTs on canvases, and seeing it is awesome, and I love it. You plan to get some more as well?
Definitely, yeah. We were talking about this off mic, but obviously we're moving the podcast to a video podcast at some point in the near future. And I need to get my office set up. So I was thinking of different ways of setting it up. And obviously I want to have some of our artwork on the wall. So I have my PFP, but that's really the only one I have. It's just a massive canvas. So it's like 20 inches by 20 inches, almost 2 feet by 2 feet. So it's pretty good size. I think I'll probably get some smaller ones to go in and around it.
Yeah, get that. I mean, your it's like the one with the golden background, right?
Yep, that's the one.
Yeah, but I mean that one is awesome anyway. I've always been a little jealous that you got this one, with the crown and everything. Um,
You
yeah,
got one.
probably would have gotten.
Well, you got one though,
I
didn't
don't
you?
have one with the crown.
Oh, you didn't?
Yeah, but not with. No crown for me.
Oh, I thought you did.
You feel sorry now, right?
Yeah, no. Well, I know that we're both holding multiples, so I figured in your collection of multiples, you had one somewhere.
No, not a single one with the crown,
Mm.
unfortunately. But I guess they're in good hands. So yeah, but I was lucky enough back then to get a lady. Obviously, we both gave our ladies away, but we couldn't. I think we couldn't be happier if good people get these pieces right.
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, I think the people who ended up with the females, obviously, are the females in our, in our community who are pretty adamant about female stuff. So it's good to see them in their hands, and of course, they'll honor and appreciate them for many years to come. So I feel good that they found their, they found their rightful home, I believe.
To be honest, I almost have the feeling that the majority of the community is looking forward, or is like um, wanting us to expand the Siren Syndicate collection almost more than the OG collection. Do you have the same impression? Because I feel like we have so many people who love female art, right?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, there's definitely been a couple questions about it. Mark has asked about the OG collection as well, and we certainly want to get going on that. It's just a matter of the technology at Stargaze needs to be updated so we can mint into that collection, so that we don't have multiple collections sort of accumulating over time on Stargaze. We don't want to have like 5 different collections. The cool thing about Solana is you can mint directly into an existing collection, which makes things really nice and easy to find. And for whatever reason, that technology hasn't been implemented on Stargaze yet. So, I probably need to jump on, talk to Brady, see what's going on with that. But I mean, obviously, we have every intention of growing both collections. I mean, this is for me, this is a lifetime project. So it's not something that I could ever see moving away from. NFTs, Web3, this technology is not going anywhere. So whether we're doing artwork or we're doing RWA or we're doing storytelling or finding ways to tokenize new assets, like we just tokenized the trees in South America. I mean, there's always going to be something to do and a new way to do it. So, it's nice to have the option to continue to evolve the collection rather than just have it be a fixed sort of, completed work. It can grow with us. So that's the nice thing about what we're doing. But yeah, with Stargaze, we're still waiting for that. And I don't have a date on when that's going to be available yet.
But what does it actually mean, like tech wise? Like, if you mint a collection on Stargaze, it's like immutable. You can't do anything with it. Isn't it like just adding like or updating the hash list if you want to expand the collection?
You would think, but the way that the collection mints on Stargaze is a little bit different from, like I said, from Solana, for example. With Solana, it's nice because you can create what's called a collection NFT, and it's sort of the parent NFT of anything that you attach to it. So you can create a parent NFT, which is called a collection NFT, and then when you mint new pieces, there's an option for you to say, hey, is this going to be a new collection or is this going to be going into an existing collection? And if you have that collection NFT already created, like that parent NFT, you can just say, yes, I want to use this parent NFT. You put its hash in there, and then the system knows to attach the new pieces to that existing parent NFT or collection NFT. On Stargaze, it's not the same. When you mint into Stargaze, when you finalize the last mint, you can't add anything to that collection. It's just done. And I don't think that it's technically impossible. It's just that the way that they've set up their minting structure, their minter, it doesn't allow for you to do that yet. And so because they've had other priorities, they've just kind of put that on the back burner. But technically it's feasible for sure. It's just a matter of them getting around to changing their minter. The only other thing that we could do is we could create our own minter, which of course would take, quite a bit of resources to do that. And they already have a team that already created one. So it's like, why don't you just clone that project and update the code so that it gives you the option to mint into an existing collection,
Yeah, that perfectly makes sense. But I mean, in the end, at least it sounds like it should not be too difficult for them to do that. So I'm pretty positive that one day. I mean, have you ever been in touch with some of the devs from Stargaze?
I haven't personally spoken to any of the devs. I usually speak to Brady because he's on the team there. And I spoke to Stardy once, who is, I think, also on the team. And this was when we first did that original mint. They both were talking about how the minting software was going to be updated to mint into the collection in the near future. So I just took them at their word that was, that was going to, be something that was on the agenda. But it's been, I think, plenty of time now to have something like that done, especially since you could just basically, sort of clone what's there and modify it. So that's really as far as it's gotten. I mean, if we have to, we can always write our own minter. I think at the end of the day, AI is getting to the point probably where, you could probably prompt AI to write the code for one. And if you have the correct server setups, obviously you're going to have to do some, you're going to incur some costs there. But if you have the correct server setups, you could probably just go ahead and, have AI write you one. Or maybe, I don't know, maybe AI will get to the point where you can say, hey, go to this link and look at this minter. If it's able to actually pull in the code or download the code from the website, which I don't think is possible yet. But if it were able to look at it and at least see how it works, it could probably spit out some code in the future. I think we're getting close to that sort of thing. So who knows? We'll get it done one way or the other. Either the team will do it or, I'll do it or I'll have AI do it. But one way or another, we'll figure it out.
Yeah, man, looking forward to that. When we talk about NFTs, did you read about the lawsuit? Wait, let me just check the tab here. Where was it? Nike was sued for NFT fraud a couple days ago.
Well, were they?
And it said that, Nike is being sued for abruptly shutting down RTFK. I couldn't find out what that is yet, but it says shutting down RTFK, causing significant losses to NFT investors. And I'm not sure if it's some sort of marketplace because, the address is basically rtfkt.com. I'm not sure if you buy digital shoes or something, or if there is some sort of physical assets as well. But they are being sued for $5 million, I think. And the one, wait, where was it? one thing that was said was pretty interesting. Um, This lawsuit against Nike illustrates the growing challenges that major brands face when venturing into the still unclear and risky NFT and crypto sector. And that's actually an interesting thing, because we keep talking about that a lot, that the markets are still in their very beginning, in their early times. And do you think that kind of keeps new people or new companies away from NFT markets, if they read about such cases?
Oh, of course. I mean, especially if you're a company like Nike, which has, basically untold or unlimited resources for the most part in terms of what they could create. I mean, they're going to need to develop an arm of their business that specifically focuses on that. And obviously, with their current setup, that's not part of their business model. So at the end of the day, they'll probably create, I think all the major companies will create an arm of their business where they hire specific people whose job it is to ensure that there's no copyright infringement, there's no, theft of IP, and that everything is structured correctly from top down all the way through to contracts and the rest of it. So I don't think there's any doubt that that's coming, especially now that, we had a big bump in the crypto market this past week, of course, and this came on the heels of Trump announcing a new SEC, I think it was an SEC Treasury Secretary, if I remember correctly, and the market jumped like big time, right? And the whole thing that was the focus of that sort of announcement was that the new guy came out and basically said, "Hey, we're going to embrace, clear regulation for crypto." Right. And so the minute that happened, everybody started accumulating that had the money to buy, because they knew, okay, well, this is inevitable. I need to get in front of it. And you'll see more and more and more and more of that. I mean, I think I mentioned on the Spaces that even real estate companies, like large real estate companies like, Grant Cardone is a huge billionaire real estate investor here. And he owns, I think, something like 15,000 apartment complexes. And he's using the cash flow from a lot of his rental properties to buy Bitcoin now. And now that there's, clear regulations around Bitcoin being property and how you can structure the holdings of it and how you can properly custody it, so that you can either tax advantage it or either multiply your cash holdings, you'll see more and more and more companies do that. But it's going to take them a while, because they're not going to sacrifice their existing business, to just jump willy-nilly into some new thing. They need to develop an arm of the business that actually focuses heavily on that.
But don't you think a company like Nike had like a long-term plan with NFTs, or do you think it was like a short-term jumping on the hype train thing?
Yeah, I don't know. I haven't heard anything about this, but
you can check it out on rtfkt.com.
rtfkt.com.
And it doesn't look, yeah,
I'm just pulling it right now.
rtfkt.com, and it doesn't look cheap or something, but they got like digital.
No, I was looking for
that they were selling.
I was looking for the press release or the article that you were talking about.
Oh, the article. This is, wait, I can share it on Telegram. This one.
I mean, it's a nice looking website, but I mean, there's nothing special. I mean, you expect a nice looking website when you come to, Nike or anything.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Let's see. It's all animated, which is usually overkill. Let's see. Nike's in turmoil, accused of abandoning its NFT investors after the sudden shutdown of its crypto division, RTFKT. The sports giant faces class action lawsuit in the United States. More than $5 million is being claimed for deceptive practices and sale of unregistered securities. Oh my goodness, that sounds horrible. Let's see. All right.
Yeah, like a rock.
Yeah, exactly. So I would be curious to know why Nike shut down their division. Let's see. Blah, 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 blah. Okay. All right. Let's see. It looks like there's a connection here to another article. Let's just pull this up for those of you guys listening. We can all learn together. Let's see. Since our inception, RTFT has been at the forefront of digital culture. This is such bullshit. I love these corporate press releases. They're always such bullshit. Let's see if we can bullshit together. A new chapter for RTFKT, whatever that stands for. Since our inception, RTFKT has been at the forefront of digital culture. Bullshit. Pioneering the fusion of sneaker culture, gaming, digital fashion, and Web3 technology. Together, we've built something revolutionary, a community where traditional boundaries between physical and digital creativity dissolved, where artists and collectors redefined what the future could be. Today, we're announcing the plan to wind down our TFKT operations. Okay, so we built this awesome thing. Look how great we are. Now we're going to shut it down because it's probably not as awesome as we thought it was. Let's see. Looking back, we're incredibly proud of everything we've achieved together, from launching revolutionary projects like Clone X with Takashi Murakami, to forging the first ever digital sneakers that became physical products, to empowering countless 3D artists and digital creators, blah, 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 blah. Let's see. So basically all they're saying is we created some collabs. Okay, that's cool. To honor and preserve this pioneering legacy, we'll be launching an updated website that showcases the groundbreaking work that define the RTFKT journey. While we expect our Web3 services will be winding down by the end of January 2025, the spirit of innovation that RTFKT represents will live on through the countless creators and projects it has inspired. Okay, it doesn't say anything about why it's ending. I don't know why it is. I want to know why they're winding it down, and it's not really clear. But I mean, at the end of the day, I think probably the hullabaloo is that, this was a big company. They made this big push, and if you're familiar with like a lot of the shoe brands, Nike, Adidas, all the rest of them, they look for like street artists. They have teams of people, talent scouts, who go out and look for artists, like street artists specifically, to collaborate with, and then they'll do some sort of T-shirt or sneaker collab, and they'll drop that person's artwork in their name. And so like for the artist, it's a big deal because it's like, okay, well, I'm partnering with Nike or I'm partnered with Adidas, and Nike gets to basically, buy them off for nothing. Like if there's a really popular artist, Nike can pay them a couple grand, for a design that they now own, because they're going to obviously take on the IP unless the artist is really savvy and knows how to negotiate. And then Nike can use that art forever. The artist makes a couple bucks, but they get the prestige that's associated with the brand. And this has been going on for decades, honestly, decades. And it's cool. But, it sounds like what this particular chapter of the company was trying to do was formalize this into some sort of NFT investment looking thing. And, I think the SEC already talked about, who was it? I forget who it was. I think it was the SEC who came forward and said that that NFTs were not securities now. I think this was already announced. I'd have to go back and double check. So don't hold me to that. Internet, do your thing. Fact check me on that, whatever. But I'm pretty sure that one of the U.S. heads of the SEC has already mentioned that this is not a raise of capital for a particular thing. So it could have to do with how the original paperwork was structured, could have to do with them wanting to legitimately do something different. But I mean, this isn't the only time this has happened. There's a big deal about Ice Cube's basketball league. I forget what it's called. It's like a 3-on-3 basketball league. And they sold NFTs, I think to the tune of like 25 grand a piece to like own a piece of the basketball league. And then of course they've sort of backed away from that. And holders haven't been made whole. They don't really have, like a full stake in their investment anymore, it seems. So, I mean, I think a lot of this is just going to be figuring it out. But it's not cool to leave people hanging. I don't care how big a company you are. And when you see something like this where it says like RTFKT, inside this announcement, like they're very intentionally leaving out the Nike brand, right? So my guess is this is probably a group of people who are somehow remotely affiliated with Nike, but they're not part of like Nike HQ. You know what I mean? Like it's probably something along that line. That would be my guess. Again, I would have to go back and research this. This is the first time I'm hearing of the Nike thing. But until companies have people in-house that are communicating what's happening in Web3 and what they want to create and how much they want to invest and how legal documents are structured and how the SEC is viewing ownership in a digital asset via NFTs or tokens or whatever, until those people are reporting to the heads at the parent company, you don't really have a division of the company that's specifically focused on that. You have a remote connection to it. And that's what this looks like to me. So I think probably what's going to have to happen is more of these companies are going to have to bring the ideas in-house and literally have direct communications with the people who count the beans, like all the accountants, the lawyers, and all the rest of it. Because especially when you're dealing with IP and copyright law, you can get into a lot of trouble really quickly if you're a big company and you start distributing something. Like, let's say, you don't have rights to a piece of artwork from an artist for whatever reason, and you put that on, 100,000 pairs of shoes, or 200,000 t-shirts that you sell across the globe. And maybe that artist is entitled to a few bucks, every time one of these things sells. Who knows what the deal is. But at the end of the day, I mean, it could result in multiple millions of dollars that need to get paid out, So I think these companies are going to have to get really, really smart about what they're doing. And my guess is they're probably taking a step back just to reformulate what they're going to do, because there's no universe where Nike or Adidas or Puma or any of the major, shoe companies, Reebok, stop doing collaborative work with artists. It's just never going to happen, because they know that sneaker culture is youth culture and they need to be connected to that.
Yeah, but that probably would have been my next question. Like, we've seen so many companies entering the NFT markets, even like on, tradable art NFTs. I think we had Toys R Us back then. We had the famous project from Shaquille O'Neal. What do you think needs to change in order for them to get successful? I mean, in the end, the question remains, if someone like a company like Nike, do you think they actually have someone who is so much into NFTs that he understands the markets and what's going on in the space?
What's going to have to change? I think we already know what's going to have to change, honestly. I mean, you mentioned Shaquille O'Neal. This was, I'm assuming you're referring to the Astrals project.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so Astrals I can speak to because I was in that Discord and I owned a couple Astrals. And the only thing that happened there was the creator of the project was friends with or somehow had a connection to Shaquille O'Neal's son or one of his sons, right? And so every once in a while, if you went into Discord, Shaquille would post a video, of himself talking to the camera, basically assuring people that, he was in it for the long run and that, he's here for the team and all this kind of stuff, which is all the usual stuff that everybody says. But because it's Shaquille O'Neal, people are like, oh, okay, well, this project has legs. It's gonna fly. But what happened was legality stepped in. And because there was a question mark of what an NFT is it an unregistered security? Is it not an unregistered security? What is it? I mean, even inside that project, like if you wanted to stake, if you were in the US, you couldn't even earn like staking rewards. They were just really, really worried about legality creeping in to what it is that they were doing. And so Shaquille was threatened with some sort of lawsuit and basically took a step back, or was advised to take a step back by his legal team. And that's really all that happened there. And I don't think until this stuff gets sorted will any celebrity in the future attach their name and likeness to a project without being 100% sure that it's going to be okay. Because if they do, they run the risk of losing, millions and millions and millions of dollars via lawsuit or to lawyers. Hey man, can you hang on 2 seconds?
Yeah, sure.
Let me just, I need to do something really, really quick. Give me 2 seconds. I'll be right back. All right, sorry about that, man.
Yeah, it's all good. I'll
Back.
just cut it out.
Yeah, so basically
Okay,
we were talking about
let's
that legality, yeah.
yeah, exactly, yeah. Were you done with your take?
Oh yeah. Go ahead. That was
Okay,
that
I
was that
actually
was a
wanted to
lot of words
move
for a
on.
very simple complex concept, right?
Okay, well, I just wanted to move on to the crypto markets. We haven't talked about that at all. And you mentioned in the very beginning that we saw a little relief rally following the or followed following the announcement of the new, what was it, SEC share? I think, what was his name? I forgot it.
New SEC chairman.
Um,
Yeah, his name
yeah,
is let me see. Atkins, I believe. Paul Atkins,
yeah,
yeah.
something like that. Sounds familiar. Yeah. So he was introduced. Markets had a big rally. Bitcoin went all the way up to 95 yesterday, or even 96. I'm not sure. We had a little correction today, and it's funny that when I checked my timeline on X today, and I saw people already claiming or telling people like, hey, markets are so bullish now, the sentiment is so bullish, this is the top signal, you should go short now. And yeah, that's it. We see that all the time, obviously. And I wouldn't even, like, even if we went down now, I wouldn't be worried at all. I would probably see that as another opportunity, because right now, as we had that rally, I feel like I don't feel good buying. I will wait a little more. What do you see it go up in the short term now, or do you think we can see another correction?
I think you can see another correction. I mean, this time is a little bit a little bit more interesting than previous cycles, because in previous cycles we had the status quo basically in terms of government. We had people in power who were basically, doing what we always knew that they were doing, and now that now Doge is exposing, stealing and lying and all the rest of it. This administration has really come in and upset the apple cart, so to speak. So, there's been a lot of chaos. There's been a lot of sort of, what would you say, just complete insecurity in most major businesses and most outlooks from many, many highbrow people. They don't know. And in the past, they would know. And I think that because of the turmoil and the chaos that we've seen, this has put a sort of a governor on, or a limiting factor on how far the markets would have run or could have run initially in 2025. So what I think has happened is we've sort of delayed the run to new highs with all of the uncertainty that's been created around the new administration. Now, that's just my own interpretation. I think the markets are moved more by sentiment than anything these days. Definitely not fundamentals. The fundamentals for crypto are really, really strong, of course, especially for the majors, Bitcoin in particular. But when you have uncertainty, and you have, like in 2020, you had a lot of debt created, obviously because we had a massive inflation in most countries around the world, especially in the U.S. I think the U.S. During the COVID years, the U.S. printed more money in 1 year than had been created in the entirety of the 20th century. So, I mean, if you could just imagine that, right? Like trillions and trillions of dollars that went into being. And then, of course, you had massive borrowing to, stay afloat by small businesses, massive borrowing to expand businesses by larger businesses. And all of that debt is coming due. Like we're coming up on the end of a 4 or 5 year cycle. A lot of it was adjustable rate debt or short-term debt. And so it's coming due this year. And so you're going to see a lot of like stress and strain in commercial real estate markets. So probably given all that, and given that we know what's coming, given that there's more certainty, I think that the only thing that can happen from here, unless we have some sort of just increase in trade wars or an actual hot war, I think it only gets better from here. Like barring those two things, if we can avoid a hot war and avoid escalating the trade war, then things are going to get better from here. because people with cash on the sidelines are going to buy up all this commercial debt that's coming due. Retail investors are not really participating in any of it. They just sort of ride along, and then they take their cues from the nightly news. And then everybody that's young and hungry is going to come in and take advantage of any dip that shows up. You'll see people in money markets, in trade markets, in the NFT markets. You'll see people in real estate. You'll see a lot of young, hungry people do really, really well if they've got cash on the sidelines. So I think at those two extremes, the extremely ultra wealthy are going to get that much more wealthy because of the commercial real estate market. And that's going to give a rise to, or more hunger to, the younger person who has a little bit of cash on the sideline, who can also pick up real world assets. And it's going to have some disposable cash flow that will also bolster the crypto market, because they're not going to invest in stocks. They're not investing in stocks. They're not putting money in a 401k. They're not thinking about retirement accounts. They're thinking about crypto and how they can expand their portfolios.
Did you read the statement from Michael Saylor? I think he made a couple days ago, where he said, if you knew what I know about Bitcoin would be at like 10 million by tomorrow.
Yep, I saw that. I almost reposted that.
What do you think are the secrets? Yeah?
Well, he was actually trying to make a point.
I mean, in the end, every one of us is aware of the fact. Yeah, I think everyone is aware of the fact that Bitcoin adoption grows, and all the companies and countries try to accumulate as many Bitcoins as possible. But I when I read that, I felt like, okay, what could be the secret here? Like, what could be even bigger than that?
Yeah, I don't think that he was actually hinting at anything other than what he's already espoused, which he feels like, Bitcoin is the best iteration of money that's ever been created, or best iteration of store value that's ever been created since the dawn of time. I think what he was trying to do was he was trying to communicate the fact that volatility is your friend. And what he was saying was, like, you can basically own Bitcoin now at $100,000 a token. Or, in a few years from now, when what I already know to be true is evident to everyone else, you can start buying it for 10 million a token. That's the point he was trying to make, right? He's basically saying it's still on sale. You should buy. And, he's famous for saying these types of things. Obviously, at the Nashville Bitcoin conference, he was talking about, he gave a speech and he cracked a joke and basically said, what do we call people who don't own Bitcoin? We call them poor. He's just literally hammering this home. Like he's really driving it home, and someone took that comment and made one of those internet songs about it, So there's a song out there with Michael Saylor, we call them poor. There's like this rhythm and this melody going on behind it. So, I mean, he's an interesting cat because, he looks at industrialists from the past, he's fond of mentioning Andrew Carnegie, who was a huge steel magnate, right? And during the Industrial Revolution in the United States, steel bridges were just coming into being and people were afraid of them. And so Carnegie would build a steel bridge, and then to prove to everyone that it was safe, it's like, let's go stand on the bridge. Like, I'll be the first one to walk out there and stand on the bridge. And to his point, that's what he's doing with Bitcoin. People think Bitcoin is something to be fearful of, and they don't really understand it, and blah, 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 blah. And so he's like, I'll be Carnegie, I'll be the one to buy the Bitcoin. I'll be the one to prove to you that it's safe, that it's a secure, investment. And of course, along with that is going to come all the major feature tokens, your Solanas, your ETHs, all the rest of them. But that's really all he was trying to do. He was trying to say volatility is your friend. And when you have an opportunity to buy it, at a discount, you should, because once everyone else in the world has been shown that this is a quality asset and they believe it, now it's too late. Like, the opportunity to multiply your wealth is gone.
Yeah, absolutely. But the question remains, in my opinion, like, how much value does this statement have coming from him. Obviously we all know his big investment in Bitcoin, and I feel like if someone else would have said that, like, without being heavily invested, it would have been much more valuable, in my opinion, because obviously he's promoting Bitcoin. He has always been promoting it. So when I read that, it did not have such a big impact as, as I don't know, as he might have hoped for. He hoped to impact me, obviously, but yeah. I don't know. I mean, I like Sailor. I like what he says. I like what he does. But in the end, that statement, I'm not sure if he if he convinced more people to buy Bitcoin, right?
Yeah, who knows? I mean, I think, and on some level, people who are curious are going to be convinced by security. Let's see. Let's make a real, excuse me. Let's make it a real world example, right? Like your family has a car business, right? Like you guys sell cars, you work on cars, that sort of thing. So like when someone comes in and they want to buy a car, like who do they want to talk to? Do they want to talk to someone who is like uncertain about the car, who doesn't know jack shit about the car, who's like, yeah, well, it's a sort of kind of little bit, it's an okay car. Do they want someone to come out and say, this is a fantastic decision. You're not going to be upset if you own this vehicle. This vehicle is going to, be a long running quality vehicle for you and your family or whatever. Which type of person do they want? What they want is they want someone to assure them that they're making a good decision. That's what they really want. That's the job of the salesperson is to be your confidence, right? When you don't have it. And that's how good salespeople operate. They educate, and then they give confidence, and then they ask for the deal. And that's all he's doing, right? He's being that confidence. He's being the confidence for the people who don't yet have it. And I think from that standpoint, when you understand what he's trying to create and how obviously it benefits strategy now. It obviously benefits strategy for Bitcoin to do very well because they hold so much of it. But it also benefits the world if more and more people own an asset that governments can't steal from you, inflate away, or otherwise, take from you, like these, in these sort of phantom thefts, like inflation, right? So on some level, he's doing the world a favor. And the people who are curious about that and want to come along, I think his attitude of strength is of benefit. You all right over there, man? Did you drop your wine glass?
Yeah, it's all good. But yeah, I
or was that a whiskey bottle?
I mean, yeah, it was, but it's empty. Yeah, but I do agree. I mean, in the end, what Sailor does is definitely I mean, when I hear him talking about Bitcoin, I definitely now that he talks about something he knows a lot about. And but I mean, in the end, like you said, you made that great comparison with the car dealership. I mean, if someone comes to me and tells me like, hey, shows me one of the cars and is like, do you recommend me buying this one? Whatever car it is, I will say yes, right? Because I'm trying to sell it. And yeah, in the end, it's a lot of psychology, I think. But it's also a good thing, as you mentioned. Governments obviously cannot control Bitcoin yet, but probably won't ever be able to. And if as many people as, but I mean, governments cannot control gold as well, right?
No, they can. They absolutely can control gold. Yeah, absolutely.
They can?
Yeah, they definitely can. How? By hoarding it, for example. Like right now, central banks around the world are hoarding gold. This is one of the reasons you've seen the gold price rise. And once it's inside the borders of a country, if the government decides to confiscate that, or if they decide to disallow you to take it in or out of the country, then they have full control over that, right? Like in India, for example, there are limitations on what you can take in and out of the country in terms of gold. Same thing here, like in the early part of the last century, Roosevelt issued, I think it was Roosevelt, I'd have to go back, I'm pretty sure it was Roosevelt, but he issued a proclamation to, turn in your gold, right? And they call it the gold confiscation, but what it was a reissuance of gold. Like they confiscated gold at $20 an ounce, and then they reissued it at 30, I think it was $35 an ounce. So they basically cut the value of gold in half in terms of dollars, right? So anything physical that they can get their hands on, they can control. And if you're moving around the world with it, if you're carrying gold on your person, as a bearer asset, then you always run the risk of being stolen from, of being confiscated at every checkpoint, every airport. I mean, there's a massive risk that you incur when you're trying to move any meaningful quantity of something like a precious metal.
Yeah. I mean, I've also already seen like, hostage taking people to,
Mm-hmm.
get their cryptos. That's why, people tell you on your socials, like not to, be too public about what you own. Um, but yeah, I get the point, obviously. But I mean, wouldn't it be the same if any country would manage to own, I don't know, 10, 20% of the supply of Bitcoin?
Wouldn't it be the same if a country owned Bitcoin? You mean who would control it at that point?
Yeah, like wouldn't it give some sort of control to countries or to governments if they own like just like enough of the supply to control it in some way, to control the price?
Yeah, I mean, when you're talking about government ownership of anything, you have to address the control issue, right? This is why it's so important that the average person accumulate now, right? And the problem with that is that when you're talking about, the currency supply, gold and silver, oil, natural resources, doesn't matter what it is, land, Bitcoin, whatever they hold, whatever they own, you have to realize that governments around the world have a monopoly on force. That is the definition of government. They are the ones who can force you to do whatever you want to do unless you're willing to trade your life to be wrong or right, in terms of how you view the world, right? So if men with guns show up at your door, your options suddenly become very limited, and if government is the one holding all of the asset, then they have, remember, armies of men and women who can literally force their will upon the populace and those close. So government control of anything is always the problem. And this is the issue and the reason that Bitcoin exists in the first place. So if we could get to a place where we have independent miners, independent, nodes running, people mining their own assets, people trading their own assets without the use of a bank, untrackable or traceable, in terms of what government eyes can and can't see. Now is the opportunity to accumulate that, because as you said, if it does end up in the hands of government, he who has the guns makes the rules. That's just the way that works. It's not a single government around the world that doesn't have guns. They might take guns from their people, but they themselves are never giving up their guns. They're not going to do it. And, you should always think about that when the new gun control laws come out. It's like, okay, well, who still has access to the automatic weapons? Well, government. And they're not giving them up, So it's kind of an interesting way to think of it. But when you realize that, the monopoly on force is all government is, you can start to see the need for something like Bitcoin. And now that there's, 19 million plus of the supply, which is, 90% of the supply, more than 90% of the supply has already been created and distributed to different people around the world or lost, then that right there tells you that there's no government on the planet that can actually control a majority of the token, because it's limited. It's limited to 21 million, and the token has already been distributed. So unless government is just going to go into the market and start buying everything up, they can't get a monopoly on it. And if they do buy everything up, that's going to run the price up. So then you win that way, right?
Yeah, that's true. So this is our message to the average people out there: accumulate as many Bitcoins as possible. And you're right, obviously, like we at that stage where we are, there is no possibility for any government to accumulate such a big amount of. I think there will never be any company or government holding more Bitcoin than my strategy right now. I think they have like 500,000 or something like that, and they still accumulate more. And yeah, they are probably going to be the biggest players around for quite some time, unless Satoshi shows up, obviously.
Yep.
But yeah, let's jump a little bit into the Goodfellas as well, as we have a lot going on too. We have had the artist incubator voting that ended, and we had a draw between Liam and Scott, a metalhead. We decided to have both pieces minted and distributed. We will start with Metalhead's piece and with proceed with Liam's piece. We just want to set everything up properly and have like marketing and everything. So this will be probably the first drop will be in the like mid May probably, and in the beginning of May we will have another drop that is coming. Maybe this is going to be a tradition from now on. I'm not sure, but yeah, maybe you can talk a little bit about this one.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, we've got, obviously Star Wars has sort of pervaded the culture. I mean, since I was a little kid, I was so young when it came out. I don't even remember like seeing the movie, but I know that my parents took me and my brother to see the movie when it released, and I was so small, like I don't even remember it, right? Like I just remember that we went, and like ever since then, I guess it was 20 years from like the original movies to the prequels, almost something like that. And then after that, another 10 years or more to the last three movies, plus all the spinoffs, plus all the animations and all the rest of it. So, I mean, there's been generation after generation after generation of people since the inception of the idea who've been exposed to it. It's just become like a global phenomenon, really. So from movies to comics to action figures, I mean, it's part of people's lives. I think a lot of dads, have shared the experience with their kids and all the rest of it. And so it's one of those things that's basically become part of the lore of the culture. And May the 4th, for whatever reason, has been adopted as almost like a Star Wars holiday. I think the original movie was supposed to drop on May the 4th or, somewhere around in that summertime, if I remember correctly. I'd have to go look it up. But so May the 4th has just basically become a Star Wars holiday, which is kind of cool when you think about it. Like one guy who had an idea, some wacky space opera idea, years later, years on, he's basically created a global holiday. So we'll do something for that for sure. And, there's also a lot that's associated with Star Wars that no one thinks about. And I'll just touch on this really quick. But if you have the Disney Channel, or if you subscribe to Disney, you can go in there and you can look for a show called, what is it? Industrial Light and Magic. I think it's just the name of, I think it's just called Industrial Light and Magic, which was the name of the company that did all the special effects for Star Wars. So originally they were models and animatronics. And, originally Lucas didn't have access to the technologies that he needed to actually tell the stories the way he wanted to tell them. So there were literally teams of people who would build models and build special effects and come up with really cool ways to use cameras and shoot these shots that didn't exist, and there was no CGI to make them exist, right? But from that group of people evolved the digital culture that we see today. Like a lot of people don't realize that Photoshop exists because Star Wars existed. They literally created Photoshop out of the graphics that they needed from Star Wars. They literally created computers meant for animation out of what they needed for Star Wars, which ultimately became Pixar. Like all of these different spin-offs came from just the desire to push the envelope further and further and further and further and further. And if you're intent on growth and understanding artwork or storytelling, or if you really want to do anything great, then pushing the envelope is what you have to do. It's just not optional. You're going to keep pushing and keep pushing and keep pushing. And more awesomeness is going to come from that as you find good people who execute on good ideas. So it's not just about Star Wars, but everything that came from it is huge and had a massive impact on the digital world. So being that we're in the digital art space and now talking about crypto, there's a certain amount of respect and honor that we owe Lucas and the Industrial Light and Magic team from way back.
Yeah, absolutely, man. I mean, I told you that I watched my first Star Wars movie a couple of weeks ago, and I really do want to see a making of this one. I'm not sure if I can find it somewhere, maybe on YouTube, but I really want to see how they made it. We will have that drop on May the 4th, obviously, which is next Sunday already. We will have Spaces on Friday. We'll talk about that drop, obviously, as well. So make sure to show up there. And yeah, I think we covered it so far. Do you have anything else?
No, I think that's it. I'll definitely get some very cool artwork out for May the 4th. We've got the AI drops coming up. Yes, I mean, there's just so much going on, so much to do. There's not enough time in the day. But keep your eyes peeled because I'm going to potentially drop something in addition. So I'll probably release that as some sort of, I'm thinking about releasing it as some sort of little hidden Easter egg in the metadata. So we'll see. We'll see what happens with that. So that's all I can say at this point.
Sounds awesome, man. Yeah, you haven't even told me. But yeah, looking forward to it. I hope you guys have a great week. Stay tuned for everything. As Jason said, a lot is going on, and we hope to see you guys on Spaces on Friday. So yeah, have a great week, and until then, bye bye.
Take care, guys.